Hey, guys, and we're back here on Out of Left Field. As we mentioned, Chip Caray is joining us again, the second time on the show. He was our first guest, and as we are kind of celebrating the first-year anniversary of the show, we want to welcome him back to the show. Chip, thank you so much again for joining us. It is an honor to have you back on the show.
Pleasure's mine. I'm glad it didn't destroy the ratings before you got out of the starting blocks. So congratulations on a great first year, and nice to be back.
And it's great to have you. And so we mentioned, obviously, the big thing the last time when we had you guys on was you guys were heading up to Fort Bragg to play the Marlins for the first game on an actual military base. SunTrust Park was almost being built, and now all those things are behind us, and SunTrust Park is open. And according to most people, that ball is carrying out of there in a hurry. Now, granted, the Braves are 20-25 this year, but as someone who's in that park day in, day out, what have been your first your first feelings on what SunTrust Park is like, the complex itself and everything around it?
Well, number one, it's a baseball city. It's not just a ballpark stuck in the middle of an urban core with nothing to do but parking lots to wander through and traffic jams to sit in. For fans who follow the Braves, we are pretty much a regional franchise. We have, of course, the metropolitan Atlanta area, but Braves fans come all the way from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, North Florida, South Georgia. So the ability for fans to drive through Atlanta, come stay a couple of nights outside of downtown, experience the Battery Atlanta, which is the shopping and entertainment district that is attached to the ballpark. The philosophy we hope that people will grow to know and love is come early, stay late, and watch a good baseball game in between. And the Braves are making incremental progress as far as that last portion is concerned. You mentioned the record of 20-25. They're scoring runs. They're just not getting consistent starting pitching right now, but we're hoping that that's going to improve. But bottom line is it's a paradigm shift for the Braves franchise. The old days of just plopping down at Turner Field and sitting in a parking lot and waiting until the game starts and trudge down the hill to down Capitol Avenue to sit in the heat and wait for the gates to open. Those days are over, and I think fans today want a reason to make a sporting event a day-long destination like they do in the NFL or college football. And in this way, shape, or form, it really is something that hasn't been done in Major League Baseball before, and the early returns are very good. Now, as far as what's happening on the field, it's a very hitterish ballpark so far. The ball does travel. The ball does fly. It's not just the number of home runs that are hit, but the number of balls that carry out to the warning track, balls that carry out to the gaps out of reach of the outfielders. So that's going to be an adjustment period. But the bottom line is that's the Braves' home park. They have to figure out how to play in it. They have to figure out how to pitch in it. And the oldest saying in sport is I've never seen a ground ball go over a fence. So if our pitchers can get the ball on the ground and our guys can catch it, they're going to have as good a chance as anybody winning the game.
Now, you mentioned, obviously, that pitching has been the issue. And when Chris and I were doing some research getting ready for this, what blew me away is now to go ahead and plug my parents because they've been a Braves fan. They were the reason I watched the Braves growing up. They watch the Braves day in, day out up in North Carolina. I don't get to watch them quite as much because TBS doesn't show it like they used to when I was growing up, or that was kind of the way that you sat down and enjoyed the night was watching the Braves anywhere that they were in the country. But what surprised me in the time and the ability I had to follow them is that Mike Fultonevich, of all players, has the best ERA for this ball club. Julio Teheran struggling. The big sexy, who I was really excited about coming in this year, is struggling as well. R.A. Dickey, not quite as much, but he has never really been the Cy Young player that we saw in New York for that 1 year. What is it that those guys have to do, and how many guys are waiting in the wings of a farm system that the Braves have really begun to pad again to come into that park and start throwing those ground balls and getting those outs and putting more victories in that win column?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. If we're to believe what we've been told, and there's no reason not to, the Braves stockpiled a ton of pitching. There's a lot of good caliber talent at AA and below. There are a couple of guys at AAA that are hopeful of making the next step. Matt Whistler is back with the team right now. We've seen him start before, but he had a 5-point ERA at AAA when he got called up when Josh Colemanter was designated for assignment. Aaron Blair has not taken many strides forward. Sean Newcomb in his last start, I think, walked 6 people, so his control isn't up to major league caliber. And I think that's the frustrating part on one hand is we have to be patient. We have to understand that it takes time to develop these guys, and the way that the franchise is set up organizationally is the strength is going to be pitching, but they've all got to hit. They've all got to be successful, is I guess what I'm saying. And that takes time to figure out who's going to make it, who's not. So at the major league level, what you see is what you're going to get. You're right as far as the starters are concerned. Mike Foltynewicz is the lone guy on this staff who is a strikeout-throwing pitcher. He can throw the ball 97 miles an hour. He doesn't always know where it's going, but he's learning how to pitch. And the rest of our staff, quite frankly, is a pitch-to-contact staff. And as I mentioned, the way the ball carries and the way the ballpark plays, that pitch to contact, which might have been a fly ball out somewhere else, is turning into a home run or a double off the wall at SunTrust Park. So we can talk and whine and complain and moan about what the park is or what the park is and how it hurts pitchers or helps hitters. The bottom line is, as Tom Glavine said the other day, the real problem for this team is that they haven't executed enough quality pitches on a consistent basis at home. And that's going to be a problem no matter where you play. As you said, the Braves are 20-25. All their losses haven't been at home, so this is an area that has to improve. Bartolo Colon is not pitching well. He's going to stay in rotation at least one more time through, I would assume. But he is not doing what he thought, and he's certainly not doing what the Braves thought he would do. R.A. Dickey, I think, has pitched fine. He's a knuckleball pitcher. It's a trick pitch. It's a difficult pitch to catch, hit, and throw. So he's given the team innings, and he's given the team really good starts. He's been hurt by home runs, wind-blown home runs at SunTrust Park. And for me, the guy that's really been a mystery is Julio Teheran. Julio's much better than he has been at his home ballpark. His ERA is over 9 there. And it's almost like in his last start against the Pirates when Adam Frazier hit a home run, it's like he finally got mad and said, enough's enough. What I'm doing isn't working. And he started challenging hitters. He started throwing his fastball more. He started getting hitters off balance instead of nibbling and trying to pitch to that contact. So he looked a little more like Julio Teheran. We definitely need him to pitch a lot more like the old Julio Teheran if the Braves are going to get to where they want to go this year, which is as close to 80 wins or more as they can get. And right now, a quarter of the way through the season, they've got a chance to do that. But in this league and in this sport, as you guys know, to win, you got to pitch. And it's got to start with the starters.
So a couple weeks ago, everybody who was watching the game where Freddie Freeman took a shot in the hand, everybody's heads just kind of dropped. People at home, people in the stands, they knew that an injury to Freddie Freeman was going to be a big deal to this team. And what's really surprised me about the Braves is how competitive they've stayed after big swinging Freddie Freeman has sort of tried to deal with the broken hand. The teams tried to coalesce around that injury. And one of the things that's really surprised me is Matt Adams, who came in, and I have a quote here from Brian Snicker who said that he's doing fantastic. He's been exactly what we needed out of Matt Adams, and that he told him, I don't want you to be Freddie Freeman. I want you to be Matt Adams. And he's really been doing a great job. What do you think about Matt Adams as far as how well he's been able to sort of pick up from what everybody thought was going to be a really bad injury for this team?
Well, it is a really bad injury. The Braves have lost one of the best players in the game, a guy that was on pace to have an MVP caliber season. And yes, you're right. Everybody's chin and jaw and head and shoulders dropped because we all know what Freddie Freeman means to the Braves franchise and what he does for the team, not just on the offensive side of things, but with his glove at first base. He saved countless errors on low throws from Adonis Garcia and Dansby Swanson and even Brandon Phillips. So there's no getting around it. It's a huge crippling loss, and it's a loss that no one could have anticipated because Freddie plays 160 games every year. You don't really have a backup plan in place because you never envision a time where you're going to need one. His injury was a freak injury. Aaron Loop just hit him with a fastball. It hit him in a bad spot, broke the bone, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about that. So to answer your question about Matt Adams, no one can be Freddie Freeman. He's just got to go be himself. The Cardinal people that I talked to said that all this guy needs is a chance to play every day. And if you give him 500 at-bats, he might hit 20 to 25 or even 30 home runs. And in our ballpark, you certainly like his chances to do that. He's in great shape. He's changed his body. He's in the Pilates and yoga and diet and all that kind of stuff. And he's a totally different man than he was just a couple of seasons ago in St. Louis. The question really is going to be in 10 weeks when Freddie Freeman comes back, what do the Braves do with Matt Adams? He could play the outfield, but the Braves are pretty much locked in with Markakis, Kemp, and Inciarte. I don't know how effective he would be off the bench, but certainly he would be an upgrade from just about anything the Braves have in the late innings. And then the other side of it is, he might be a very attractive trade piece that brings you something you don't have in your organization at the deadline if Freddie Freeman comes back and is fully ready to play and has no issues with the hand. So it was a great trade. The Braves gave up very little to get Matt Adams. They got cash back in the deal. Matt wasn't going to fit in St. Louis for whatever reason. He's got an opportunity to show what he can do, not just to us, but the other teams in Major League Baseball. And for what Atlanta needed at the time, trying to put a Major League quality, representative, winning lineup on the field, the stroke of brilliance by John Hart and John Coppola to get this guy from the Cardinals. And we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Now, you did a piece yesterday that I was fortunate enough to I heard was coming, and I took a look at it. It's on Twitter on the Fox Sports Braves Twitter page. And we're also, guys, we're going to retweet that and put it on our Facebook page, at OO Left Field on Twitter, and the Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham page on Facebook. You did what really can be amounted, and I'm not at all trying to say anything aside from what I really believe is it was just a fantastic and a powerful interview with Eddie Perez and Ender Inciarte. Inciarte, one of the young stars in this game. If it wasn't for some of the hotter names in center field, I think he'd be a yearly all-star starter for probably the next 5, 6, 7 seasons plus. But we saw this on ESPN a couple of days ago on Sunday Night Baseball, where guys like Miguel Cabrera, Rick Odor all got together and were talking about what's happening in Venezuela, in their home country. And you had a chance to sit down with those guys who, as Ender said, and I'll let you explain it for those who haven't had a chance to see it, but that sometimes he walks onto the field, and because he can't, he reaches out to his family and they don't answer right away, that as hard as he tries to check things at the dugout fence and go on the field empty-minded, he's sitting there worried about his family because of all the unrest that's happening in that country, and their love for that country was just evident in that piece.
Very much so. First of all, thank you for watching it, and thank you to Ender and Eddie and the other guys from Venezuela for speaking out and letting us have a window on what their world and what their reality is, because being in Atlanta, 1,900 miles away from Caracas, Venezuela, it truly is a world away for us, but it is in our own hemisphere, and it's a 4-hour plane ride from Miami or Atlanta to this place where so much incredible societal unrest is taking place. I think we're all guilty in the world of sports in which we work of looking at players as numbers and salaries instead of human beings and people. And if you look at the map of where baseball players in our world come from, first is the United States, second is Dominican Republic, and third is Venezuela. There are a lot of guys, or 900 major league, minor league players, coaches, healthy guys, disabled guys in professional baseball that are from Venezuela that are playing in the United States right now. Not all of them agree with Eddie and Ender in their politics, but certainly all of them are very proud of their country and their heritage and when they came from. And for these guys to leave their families behind to pursue, in Eddie Perez's case, the total American dream, to come here, play baseball, learn the language, assimilate to the culture, become a United States citizen, for him that's the ultimate. But you always remember where you came from. And these two men in the Braves clubhouse, including Jose Yepes, who's the bullpen catcher, who's also from Venezuela, they have friends, they have family, they have loved ones who are still back there. And the biggest issue that they had was not their disagreement with their government, but their inability to do anything about it working and living in America, and their fear of reprisals for people at home should they speak out, because they are famous, they are well known. Ender Inciarte played for the World Baseball Classic Venezuelan national team. And you're right, every day he picks up the phone and all he gets are images and photographs from the rioting and kids that are being shot with steel balls by the military there, the mass hunger, food, necessities. Eddie Perez on a monthly basis gathers all the free soaps and shampoos from our hotels, for example, and sends that back to Venezuela just because nobody has anything. 40, 50 years ago, Venezuela had one of the world's richest economies in this hemisphere. The oil boom certainly provided Hugo Chavez with an incredible platform to Bolivarize his society and try to eradicate poverty with free government programs, socialism, if you want to call it that. and it was funded by the marvelous natural resource of oil. But when the price cratered, those social programs became too expensive to sustain, and people that were used to being on the government dole saw all of those things get taken away from them. And now what do? They have a nationalized oil industry. Exports are worth 40% more outside of Venezuela, so what comes in immediately gets sold off and shipped away because people have to find a way to make money. Inflation is rampant. There are chronic mass shortages, and kids are dying in the streets. And finally, these guys collectively and individually gathered the courage to speak out, to protest what they see as a grave governmental injustice. And all they want is for the people of their home country to be treated with respect and dignity and have a say in their own future, and they don't feel that they have that. So I was really proud of our guys for speaking up. I was really pleased that they entrusted me with asking them those questions. And Brian Woodrum, our producer, put together that very short feature, and it's just a very small window into a world that people in America cannot understand. But I really hope that people who follow baseball and love our sport will look at it and hopefully understand that these guys are carrying a very heavy burden, not just a batting average or a big salary on their backs. They truly do have the weight of their country, their friends, and their families on their backs each and every day, and they can't get away from it.
And someone that you, as you said this, it triggered my thought about someone who loved their country, never forgot where they came from, was the late, great pitcher Jose Fernandez. And as much as I would love to hear your take on him, one of the stories I heard that Chris and I had discussed when everything first happened was the story, and I actually never knew it was him that hit the home run. I remember the picture of Brian McCann standing in front of the plate, not allowing a Marlins player to touch home, and I never had known that was Jose Fernandez. And obviously you hear after that Freddie's talking to, I believe it was Mike Redmond was managing at the time, and they're looking for him, and he says, "Oh, he's already over here apologizing to the guys. He owned everything. We're all good." And I mean, just a guy who never really let the game, as big as it is, as big as the stadiums, as big as the lights are, that never overshadowed his personality. And I know that that the Braves were there when everything happened. That game was obviously postponed, and the next day the Mets game happened. And I'm more curious as to what your emotions were when you saw D. Gordon hit that home run, because for me, watching the TV, I openly started weeping. Everything happened just as big as the game is. Everything became so much smaller. I'm just curious what it was as someone who knew Jose, loves the game, has been in the game for so long, what it was like.
Well, Jose Fernandez was one of my favorite guys to watch pitch, and I've told him as much. Obviously, what we knew then isn't what we know now, and I think all of us were heartbroken, still are, that he passed away so suddenly and, frankly, so irresponsibly. To say it's a tragedy is to sort of minimize what took place. It's just sad to see him reach his own end by his own hand in such a horrific way. The toxicology report says it all. He was a young guy who was full of life and maybe too full of it, and it caught up with him in a tragic circumstance. And let's not forget, those decisions that Jose Fernandez made didn't just impact him. It impacted two other people who were killed on that boat and their families as well. So I feel an incredible amount of sorrow for Fernandez and his family. His child will never know her father. That's heartbreaking. The city of Miami, in a much smaller scale, loses a guy who was an iconic figure in the Cuban-American community. He was a centerpiece of a Marlins franchise that had high hopes this year. He's an irreplaceable guy. And for baseball, we lost an engaging, energetic guy who, as you said, lived for the moment. And that's really, really horrible. But ultimately, Jose Fernandez was guilty of making some very, very bad decisions, and those very, very bad decisions cost him his life. And knowing that now does not in any way diminish the emotion and the impact of D. Gordon's home run and the sadness his teammates feel and that heavy burden that they carry around every day. His locker is encased in lucite in the home locker room down in Miami. And so every day they walk in there, and there's a memory of how his locker looked the night he made that fateful decision to go get on the boat. And as wonderful a tribute as that is, I'm sure for a lot of those guys it's very hard. And hopefully, if you'll pardon the pun, hopefully it's a sobering reminder of how fleeting life is and how impactful our decisions can make, not just for ourselves and our families, but for a lot of other people. So he's missed. He was a great player. It still seems weird to speak of him in past tense. And I hope that somehow, some way, his family, his friends, his neighbors, the other family will somehow find peace in what turned out to be an unspeakable tragedy last September.
Well, Chip, our immense thanks for you coming on, taking some time with us. It's always great to talk to you. My hope is to make it down to Miami near the end of the season for one of the last series the Braves are playing down here, since I don't get to see you guys too often in Florida. But just, again, from someone who's had a chance to really watch you work from the time that I was young. I met you when I was about 7 years old, and you were very gracious to me at the time, although I did call Harry your dad, because I didn't know that Skip was your dad, but I plead ignorance at 7 years old, so don't hold it against me. You were very gracious.
No worries. I'm 52 and very ignorant too, so don't worry about it. Pleasure to be on with you guys, and look forward to catching up down the road.
Same. Thank you so much. Chip Caray from the Atlanta Braves with us. We'll be right back on Out of Left Field.
Okay, let's get right to it. Do you want an easy gift idea good all year round? Or maybe you just like to keep a steady supply of quality crafted microbrews delivered directly to your door? Either way, The Grueling Truth has a solution for you. Go to thegruelingtruth.net/beer to learn how you can join up with the Craft Beer Club and get the best American beers you've never heard of sent direct to you or that beer drinker on your gift list. The Craft Beer Club discovers exceptional craft brews from around the country and delivers them direct to you or your gift recipient. Every selection is produced by independent microbrewers employing traditional ingredients and time-honored brewing methods. Best of all, with the Craft Beer Club, there is no membership fee, no obligation, and any subscription may be canceled at any time. Choose from monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly to get the right amount of great beer to stock your fridge or someone else's. So help The Grueling Truth help you to fantastic beer year-round. Visit thegruelingtruth.net/beer and join the club, the Craft Beer Club.
U.S. delivery addresses only. Please enjoy Craft Beer Club products responsibly.
And again, guys, welcome back. We want to thank Chip Caray for taking the time to join us. He is over in San Francisco, so it was quite the early morning for him. So a thanks to him and the Braves organization for just making some time for us to come back on as we do continue to celebrate the one-year anniversary of Out of Left Field. So, Chris, I was surprised by, I guess, a couple of the things that that he talked about. The pitching has really been the thing from that ball club that is kind of mind-boggling. Nobody expected the Braves to be a great club. There's no question about that. But, I mean, if we look at this, the Braves have allowed 3 or more runs 18 times this season in at least one inning. There have been some games they've allowed 3 or more in multiple innings. But Brian Sitker mentioned at the end of the Pirates series this past Thursday that, man, we just couldn't stay away from the big inning. And it's been that way with this club all year. It doesn't matter top to bottom. They lost their first game of the year after going deep into the game, knotted up at 0. They give up 6 runs in one inning. They lose 6-0. So, I mean, you played. I know you pitched a little bit more. You can finger point all you want, but it stops at the mound. It's not starters. It's not relievers. It's that entire pitching staff that is struggling, and namely guys like Julio Teheran, who we're so used to seeing be a good piece, but this year 3-4, a 4.88 ERA, a 1.464 WHIP. He's walking at least 4 guys every 9 innings he pitches.
Yeah, and here's the problem. You've got the ace of the team in Julio Teheran, who's just getting lit up. You've got another guy who I think we expected better of. I don't know. You and I discussed this off the air, and you said that there was some expectation for him to stabilize after the Cy Young win in 2012. I sort of disagree with that sentiment just because that Cy Young year was a little bit of a fluke year for him. But R.A. Dickey is just getting lit up as well. And then, the old man, Bartolo
and let's
Colon.
be fair. I mean, what's your favorite thing to say about guys when we start looking at past numbers? I mean, right. It's your favorite thing, but more often than not, it rings pretty true.
Past performance is not an indication of future performance. It just isn't, especially not in a game of numbers like baseball. Bartolo Colon, the old man out on the mound is just, I mean, when was the last time or did you ever think you would ever hear the phrase, hey, Bartolo Colon has a 6.96 ERA?
When you look at a guy like Justin Verlander, who you have said you don't think is going to be able to keep up the same form that he has, I can understand it, especially at his age. The guy's 42 years old. But I think what's happening here really is, yes, we know that Colon is getting to that age where he should be declining, but it's such a great story that he's not declining and how well he's actually doing. You kind of push aside the rational fact of before too long, the bottom's going to just fall out from under him, or more likely the big guy is going to just crack the bottom and it's going to fall out from under him. And you and I can say that because we're both hefty. Me more than you. Congratulations on the weight loss thing. It's going well. I like it. You're looking healthy. You're looking good.
Thank you.
But, end of the day, yeah, Bartolo Colon's expected to go this route. I think the Braves are they're snake bit. They're a snake bit team who tries to go in and pull guys. You bring in R.A. Dickey, you bring in Bartolo Colon, you bring in Jaime Garcia, who was good with the Cardinals, began to struggle, try to give him a new face, a new franchise, let him kind of find himself again, and instead they're just finding themselves at the bottom of a barrel in the NL East.
And, you and I talked about this the other day, and when we talked about it the other day, Mike Fultonevich, is that how you say it?
There you go, kid. I like it.
Was the team leader in ERA with a 3.52 or 3.28 or something like that. He has since been replaced by Jaime Garcia as the number one starter in ERA, and it's not good. Fultonevich is now rocking a 4.44 ERA after his previous start, in which he got pretty well lit up by the San Francisco Giants. So
I just saw that. And to be fair, guys, so our interview with Chip Caray was done this past Friday. That's what they believe the 26th. So a couple of days in between starts. But yeah, man, I mean, I hadn't seen that, and then holy hell in a handbasket. I didn't know. I mean, his ERA was surprisingly solid. And then you look at this, and yeah, he got absolutely just annihilated. I had not seen that yet, and man, that does not bode well at all for that starting rotation.
No, and nothing that's going on right now bodes well for this starting rotation. And what really needs to happen is that these guys need to get on track and pitch like these guys know how to pitch. Julio Teheran is a fantastic pitcher. He's just missing spots. He's not hitting his spots. He's not throwing as well as he has in the past. R.A. Dickey is a knuckleballer, and you're always going to run into this with a knuckleballer, just like we talked about today. Knuckleballers throw a pitch that if you can get a hit and you can hit it on the screws, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and the problem with the knuckleball is like I had told you, is it may be hard because you don't know where it's going. And R.A. Dickey was kind of lauded for being a guy who had somehow found a way to have some semblance of control over his knuckler. The problem is if that thing doesn't begin the dance, it's a straight, flat, low batting practice fastball that guys are going to tee off, and especially in this new ballpark, as Chip Caray said, the ball is absolutely rocketing out of SunTrust Park.
And if you watch R.A. Dickey today, when he got lit up by the San Francisco Giants, he gave up 6 runs in the first 2 innings, and 5 of them were earned. And one of them was on a pass ball, and that's another problem with the knuckleball, because knuckleballs don't just create problems for hitters, they create problems for catchers, and they create problems for umpires. So if the catcher's dropping the ball, and unfortunately for their backup catcher, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but unfortunately for their backup catcher, because Flowers wasn't playing today, it presented an issue in which
it should be Anthony Recker or Kurt Suzuki, but both are on there. Suzuki is normally the backup guy.
Right, it was Suzuki that was playing today, and it presents a problem for him because
both guys are wearing that 4-3 mask now. I think Suzuki came over and he and Flowers got some collusion on the gear.
Well, Flowers though wears a 4-3 vest as well. You'll notice the 4-3 logo on the vest, which is something I mentioned to you the other night when he was playing. But he didn't know where the ball was going. The ball gets past him. Obviously, if he gets a glove on it, that's a pass ball. So now it's looking bad on the catcher. These are runs scoring on pass balls. When in reality, anytime a ball gets past a catcher that's a knuckleball, you got to look at that more like a wild pitch, because that's a pitch that the catcher didn't know where it was going. But if it gets leather on it, there's nothing you can do about how it's scored. And they've changed the scoring. They initially scored both of them wild pitches and went back and changed them to pass balls.
Yeah, and that's one of those things when it comes to scorekeeping. It's tough because, it's a pitch that's kind of moving, and at the end of the day, you're trying to block it, get a glove on it, whatever it is. The telling statistic as we kind of get ready to move on from this, Bartolo Colon is 44, not 42. R.A. Dickey is 42. But the biggest telling thing here, the only pitcher with an above 500 record is closer Jim Johnson, who's 2-1. Now, Dickey is 3-3, and again, you expect him to have a higher ERA because of the ball he's throwing, but we know that because of the injury to first baseman Freddie Freeman, the offensive production has gone down drastically. There is no real fear in that lineup. Matt Kemp is not what he once was. Nick Markakis has not been the same guy who really had kind of that big year in Baltimore before he came to Atlanta.
R.A. Dickey's actually 3-4. He lost today against the Giants. So.
Ouch. Okay, so update alert. There are now currently no starting pitchers. Only the closer who has an over 500 winning percentage.
Or 500 or better at all. But and this is where the Braves are really starting to fall down. This is where you see the separation between them and the Washington Nationals. Yes, the Braves are the number 2 team in the East. However, that doesn't really say much for them, because past the Washington Nationals, there really aren't any teams in the East. No contending teams anyway. So they're the best of the worst at this point, and they're still 8 games back from the Washington Nationals. So, I mean, look for them.
Surprising numbers. Matt Kemp's actually batting .333 right now, a .947 OPS with 8 dingers, 27 ribs. I'm actually impressed. I mean, at 32, we didn't see that kind of production in San Diego. Now, again, that new ballpark might be helping with his power numbers, because in San Diego, it wasn't looking the same. And of course, Ender Inciarte, really a guy who I think is going to be a great center fielder, hitting .284. He's got 6 dubs, 5 homers. He's driven in 18. He's also swiped 9 bags, been caught 4 times. So they have pieces to build around. What worries me is that Julio Teheran had long been considered a guy who might be a trading piece. He's 26 years old. The problem now is I'm not saying that you want to get rid of him. I get that guys are going to have slumps. It's going to happen. If you're going to slump, you might as well slump in a year where your team has absolutely no possible way of making the postseason. You just want to see if he can bounce back from this. He's a big leaguer. He's been in for a while. You want to see him work his way out of this slump. It will make the club feel better. No, okay, he can get through these. The mentality is there. He's mentally tough. He's strong. There's no worries. Now we've got guys to build around, and at least Ender and him, hopefully Dansby Swanson. But right now, Swanson's hitting a measly 195. So what was expected is not coming to fruition right now. We'll see if that changes. But, I mean, obviously, he got brought up last year. He's getting thrown into the fire on a team that's not that great. And we're just going to see what happens with him coming down the stretch.
Well, I don't think anybody expected the Braves to be doing as well as they are, and it really is their offense that's keeping them going. But one team that we expected to be doing a lot better than they are right now is the Baltimore Orioles. And unfortunately, they're just slumping right now, and there's no other way to put it. They were hot out of the gate. They did pretty well. Trumbo had a few issues coming out of the gate, but he got back on track, started hitting, and then they get into mid-May and just sort of drop the ball. The Yankees take over the top slot in the East, and here we are now with the one team who we said maybe could play spoiler, but are too young to take this top spot, are now walking and owning that top spot. And maybe it's just me. Right now, the Orioles are on a 7-game losing streak. But when you and I first started the show, this is shades of another big slump that we talked about that never
rematerialized into winning was the White Sox. And it's starting to make you kind of – I'm not saying that they're that team. They're resilient. They're young. I think they have good pieces there. But this year they moved Ubaldo Jimenez to the bullpen finally. Guy was 1-2, a 7.17 ERA. He'd given up 11 dingers. He'd walked 25 and struck out 32, which is not at all the kind of ratio that you want. A 1.7 whip and walking over 5 guys per 9 innings pitched. Now, they're having – 13 losses this month. I believe that goes to 14 or 15 now out of all the games. When I was looking at my numbers, they were 13 losses this month for a total of 21 losses when I grabbed the numbers. Now they're 23, so they've lost 15 games. So, almost all of their losses have come in the month of May. They won 7 of their first 9 of the month, 6-game winning streak, swept the White Sox. But the problem is, again, and we're talking pitching, and guys, we're not harping on this, but really it's coming down to the fact that pitching isn't an issue as much this year as we've seen, although there's something I want to ask you in the next couple of weeks where we had mentioned we hadn't seen any no-hitters or perfectos in a while, where we had seen so many for the last probably 5-10 years, and I'm wondering if we're back up into that kind of uptick of more guys, more hitters coming into the game, and less good pitching, and we're kind of starting to see that balance again where pitching was such a commodity that hitters were going down and we're seeing better pitching. So we're going to get into that here probably in a week or two, but it's something I want you to think about, man, because it's made me wonder. We saw guys like Matt Cain, and now those guys are kind of trickling out and big bats are moving up. But
I don't know so much that it's bad pitching as I don't know so much that it's bad pitching as that the hitters in the league are starting to catch up with these guys, because what we've really seen in the last 5 or 10 years that we didn't see before that was an emphasis on hard pitching, right?
Yeah.
The number of guys who threw 93-mile-an-hour fastballs in Major League Baseball from forever until 1999 was relatively average. You get to about 2005, that number goes way up. Now 93 is about the average high-velocity fastball. However, starting in about 2008 or 2009, you see a huge number of guys who are throwing 96, 97, 98 as starting pitchers. These guys are throwing those high-speed pitches in the 7th and 8th inning of their starts. And that's not something you saw really before. We still get sort of a kick out of a guy who can throw 98, 99, or 100, but 94, 95, 96 is no longer considered above average. Right.
Yeah, really, if you're that 92, 93 range in the minor leagues, unless you got some filthy stuff, you got a hard shot making it to the show.
Right,
99 used to kind of be like, all right, your ticket's punched, just let's go.
That's exactly the conversation we had about Madison Bumgarner, right? Because Madison Bumgarner throws a 93-mile-an-hour fastball. However, he's got that strong slider. He's got a strong curveball. And I've said on 100 different occasions that if Madison Bumgarner threw 96, he would be almost unhittable. Maybe even 97. He would be almost unhittable. If he threw the fastball that Kershaw throws, he would be more Kershaw-like as far as how much he can hit.
We look at guys who are hard throwers, and, here's the odd thing to me about the Orioles rotation right now. The guys who are having the biggest struggles are their 1 and 2 guys, Tillman and Gausman. Now, I understand that Tillman missed all of spring in the first month with a shoulder injury. So he's 1-1, a 4.43 ERA, which isn't bad for the number of games he's been able to pitch, but 4. A 1.6 whip, 4 walks per 9. Things that are gonna, obviously things that are correctable in more games. He's pitched in 4 games, he's 1-1, but then you get a guy like Kevin Gausman, who's 2-4, an ERA over 6, giving up 10 dingers, 22 walks, 38 strikeouts, 3.7 walks per 9, and a 1.7 walks and hits per inning pitched. So the odd thing is it's these guys who we expect to always be, the number one kind of carry this, and it's the back end of that rotation and Bundy and Miley who are really coming through and being the guys who are showing up a lot better. Miley's 1 and 2 only because he really hasn't gotten a whole lot of run support.
Right, exactly. And this goes back to something that we've kind of discussed a lot on this show, and that is that nowhere in baseball does that idea that past performance won't predict future performance fit so well as it does with pitchers, because pitchers seem to be the precipitous thing, right? They're great, and then something happens, who knows what it is, but they have this drop. And we never know if it's going to be a season-to-season thing where a pitcher's going to be great. Now, there are a few names in baseball that you can say, hey, yeah, he's probably going to pitch well next year. Guys like Clayton Kershaw, guys like Justin Verlander, those kind of guys. But even these guys that we expect to be aces like Julio Teheran and Kevin Gausman and Chris Tillman, who obviously was hurt, and I get that. But even those guys, when we try to go year to year with those guys, there's just no telling what they're going to do. And you make a great point, actually, in this message that you sent me, that Miley has a losing record, but his allowing 3 runs or fewer in all but one of his starts has led to him reducing the damage in those games. And those are really games that are given up by the bullpen, which is another issue that they're going to have to look after. He's gotten no decisions in 6 of his 9 starts, which is insane. That means that he's not getting run support and that his bullpen's not doing its job.
And Bundy's, similar. Pitching well, allowed 3 or fewer in all but one of his 10 starts. So, really, that's what you're looking at is offensive production. And Bundy has been fortunate to have offensive production around him. Miley, like I said, has held teams in check, but either a lack of runs or a bullpen collapse keeps him out of the win column or no decision. Miley is pitching a lot better than what at least his win-loss record shows, which, again, is why you can't always judge a pitcher off of win-loss. There are other things we're looking at. That's why ERA, looking at how many homers. Miley, 6 homers, 28 walks to 49 strikeouts. Guys at a 1.1 or a 1.4 whip, Bundy and Miley respectively. Miley's walks are up, but still 5.2 walks and your ERA is sub 2.6. That's solid.
And right now, the fact of the matter is that that Bundy is the guy who's pitching like the ace on the team, right? He's got a 2.92 ERA. His win-loss isn't great. He's 5-3, but 5-3 in 10 starts means that he's only had 2 no decisions. He's gone 64, almost 65 innings, 64 and 2/3 innings, which is deeper than any of the other starters have gone. He's averaging 105 pitches per start. He's striking out 6.5 per 9, and his walks and hits per innings pitch is only 1.14. This is the guy that's really getting it done for the O's right now. And the really sad thing about that is Bundy's their number 3 pitcher. So if their number 3 guy is the guy who's really getting it done, that means that 2 of those other games that you should be able to count on try to count on for W's in your 1 and 2 starters you're losing when you probably shouldn't be.
Right. And Alec Asher is the guy who the Orioles have tapped, at least that's what I've heard, to come out and go ahead and be the guy who is going to replace Jimenez in that rotation at the back end of that rotation. And he's, solid guy, young kid, 25 years old, but nothing really to laugh at. Again, been out of the pen for the most part. Has been in it's like 11 games roughly so far this year, but he's 1-2. Sitting the 2.17 ERA, so nothing too bad. He's allowed a total of 7 earned runs and 4 dingers. So a guy who it's going to be interesting to see how well he can pitch. We've seen him a couple times this year in the starting role. At Toronto, they lost 2-1. At Boston, they lost 5-2. But that was his first loss of the year was that Boston game where he allowed only 3 earned runs. Again, a guy who's been granted in the pen, but has allowed 3 earned runs once to a Boston team who, you and I both know what was happening at that point in Boston. So between those 2 teams, it was just a matter of who was having the hotter bats and who was more pissed off at the other and who was going to perform well. But I think Asher, it's a good chance for a kid to have to come into a rotation at the back end of a team who needs to go ahead and rebound, he has a chance to kind of help that team move along, which is going to help him, I think, long-term for his career. Say, hey, I was there. I was a back-end piece. I'm not an anchor, but I'm a guy who they could rely on to go out, do my job, put us in a position to win. And if he can do that, that's the thing. If he can do that and the offense can stay consistent, then the Orioles will be okay. They're going to be buyers at the deadline. They're going to be looking for bullpen help to go ahead and prevent these no decisions and these big runs at the end. But the Orioles still certainly can go ahead and make a run in the American League East. The Red Sox are moving on up. The Yankees are still holding the top spot. It's going to be a fun race again in the AL East. It's just not the three teams we pictured. We thought the Yankees were going to be on the outside looking in, and it was going to be the Blue Jays, and they're still sitting 4 games below the 500 mark.
Yeah, obviously, we predicted this to be a fun league, and it hasn't really disappointed yet, and I don't think it's going to. And I think, as much as I really don't like to say it, the Yankees are fun to watch right now. And it's not that I like the Yankees or I want to watch the Yankees. It's just that you can't help but be compelled by this sort of story that's developing there with Aaron Judge and this story that's developing there with the rest of these really young guys who are just coming out and getting it done. And it's fun to watch.
I was having a discussion with a guy today at work, and he was complaining because, man, I hate the Yankees because they always have all this money, they're doing well, they're buying this, and yeah, they have I think like the 3rd or 4th highest payroll at the start of the season. But do you realize how much of this payroll is being paid to guys who are old and are not producing nearly the amount that these young kids are? Like, yes, you are paying guys a ton of money because you were stupid, as we are in baseball, and we pay guys these knee-jerk reaction contracts, kind of like what Eric Hosmer is reportedly wanting, which is supposed to be, something to the effect of, a 10-year, rough deal, and it was given into. And I'm curious to see now, as we're seeing guys, late 30s or late 20s, early 30s, getting decade-long deals like Rodriguez, like Albert Pujols, and seeing how it doesn't pan out, if we're finally going to see GMs back off and we're going to see the market begin to change. Again, something we can get into later, but just something I was thinking about.
So we do have a little bit of somber news this week. There was a death in the greater baseball family. Hall of Fame pitcher Jim Bunning passed away Saturday morning. He was a Hall of Fame pitcher who pitched for the Detroit Tigers. He pitched for the Philadelphia Phillies. And he actually is one of 18 modern-era pitchers with a perfect game to his record. 2 no-hitters in his career, one with Detroit, one with the Phillies. That one with the Phillies being the perfect game, which he threw against the 1964 Mets. And I'd just like to point out that the team that he threw that perfect game against had 5 of its 8 starting outfielders, 8 starting fielders, not including their pitching staff. 5 of its 8 starting fielders were hitting above 300 when he threw that no-hitter against them. And we're talking about
he's also one of the few men in history to throw a no-hitter in both leagues.
Right. And he's also a guy who, when he played for the Detroit Tigers and had a lot of success for the Detroit Tigers, this is a guy who played for the Tigers, a Tigers team who was facing a Yankees team that had Mickey Mantle. I mean, we're talking about the 1955, 56, 57, 58 Yankees is who this guy's thrown against as a Detroit Tiger. And he had great success, career 327 pitcher, nearly 3,000 strikeouts to his record, 2,855 strikeouts compared to 1,000 even walks. And obviously, he wasn't just a competitor on the field. He was just as strong a competitor off the field. He served in both the U.S. House of Representatives and the United States Senate. He's actually the first Hall of Fame baseball player ever to serve in Congress. He was a staunch conservative, fought for things like states' rights and other very conservative issues. He was lauded after his death as a staunch conservative, a lot of conservative websites did say that we lost a very strong conservative today. And so obviously we here at Left Field would like to offer our greatest condolences to his family.
Without a doubt. And I mean, this guy pitched against, he said, great. I mean, Ted Williams. And Williams would say, man, his slider, I hated the damn thing. And there was I thought it was a quote from a book, and said, and I'm going to just kind of paraphrase as part of the book here. And this is in a book called Ball 4 by Jim Bouton. Said Ted Williams, when he was still playing, would psych himself up for a game during batting practice, usually early practice before fans or reporters got there. He'd get in the cage, wave his bat at the pitcher, and start screaming, "My name is Ted effing Williams. I'm the greatest hitter in baseball." Swing and hit a line drive. You just keep talking. Then he'd say, "Here comes Jim Bunning. Jim effing Bunning and that little bleep slider of his." Wham. He doesn't really think he can get me out on that, can he? But Williams would say, I mean, he had some of the biggest respect, and I haven't seen a ton of stuff off of Ted Williams, but there was a really neat piece on MLB Network that Matt Vasgersian kind of captioned, if you will, or did kind of the speak over. And yeah, it was pretty cool, kind of seeing guys like Ted Williams talking about that, and just, I mean, this guy was, he was one of a great pitcher of his time. Was elected not by the writers but by the Veterans Committee, but by all accounts, a lot of guys seem to be really surprised that he was kept out of the Hall of Fame by the writers, that his numbers were clearly worthy of getting that. And unfortunately, it just the writers didn't go ahead and put him in.
We said it before, and I'll say it again. I think any guy on that list of 18 guys who has a perfect game to their credit has to be on the short list for the Baseball Writers Association of America. And if they're not, then I really don't know what those guys are thinking. I mean, unless one of those guys had just one single great game in his entire career and then never did anything else, a guy like
Philip Humber.
I don't want to throw names out there because he's not on the list because of a huge mistake. But a guy like Galarraga, he didn't have a Hall of Fame career.
Dallas Braden. I mean, David Wells, David Cohn. I mean, there are a decent number of guys who have found, that lucky moment and have been able to go ahead and come away. Chris Heston had a no-hitter.
But those guys are going to get a second look. Even if they don't get the votes, they're going to get a second look based on the fact that they had that perfecto to their credit.
I disagree with you when it comes to that. I think that a perfecto is great, but it's a one-game thing where the stars aligned, everything happened just right. I disagree that you look at that, in the greater scheme. Now, look at something like Max Scherzer, who has 2 no-hitters in a season, almost back-to-back. Guys like Roy Halladay, who have a no-hitter and a perfect game in the same season, combined with the rest of what they do, it pads that resume. But when you're looking at just overall who they are, and then, a lot of guys who had that one thing and that was it, it's not enough for me to even waste my time on a second look. That's just me, though.
I think that his 3.27 ERA and his nearly 3,000 strikeouts should have gotten him at least a second look. But the Baseball Writers Association of America in the 1970s,
not Bunning, but the guys that we're mentioning of
sure
today.
But think about the state of the Baseball Writers Association of America in the late 70s, right? We're talking about guys who are getting over the fact that they've just inducted guys like Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams into the Hall of Fame, and in that sort of context, right? When you're looking at guys who played in the 1950s and you see guys like Mickey Mantle, you see guys like Ted Williams, and then you see a Jim Bunning who is an above-average pitcher but maybe not the best of the best, maybe those baseball writers can be sort of, if not forgiven, then at least understanding where they're coming from. You know what I mean? Because they're putting in guys who are all-time greats. Those are the kind of guys that those guys are putting. We're not talking about the Baseball Writers Association of America of the late 1990s who are looking at guys from the middle and late 80s, right? These are not those guys.
Right, and I understand that. And I mean, that was kind of the golden age of baseball, and hopefully we I think we'll see part of that now. We saw, I think some of that in the last several years with, the way pitching was going. Hopefully we have some teams now, some dynastic teams. And I'd like to see multiple teams that have a dynastic component around them and begin to see a lot of, hopefully see a little bit of parity in the major leagues. Now, something you and I had talked about, and we, all right, we got two teams that have won 30 games in the show, and at the time when we had looked, it was the Astros and the Rockies, and I just was just talking to you that number has exponentially increased, just a smidge. Yeah, just a tad. As of today, we now still have the Astros as the only 30-game winner in the American League, although the Yankees are sitting at 29, so just behind them. But the Nationals hit number 30. They are 30-19. We have the Rockies still at 33, the Dodgers at 31, and the Diamondbacks at 31, and then obviously a pretty good-sized drop. The Diamondbacks are 31-21.
Good enough for second place in the National League East or National League West?
What's that?
Is that good enough for second place?
Right now, the Dodgers are a half game up on the D-backs.
How about 3 30-game winning teams in the same division, and 30 games this far into the season is not enough to put you in first place? Yeah. We knew the West was going to be exciting. I just don't think we thought the Diamondbacks were going to be involved in that excitement.
No, and Dan Plesac called it when we talked to him. Obviously, this past off season in January over Orlando. But I mean,
I do owe him an apology.
You got to look at the Rockies. What's that?
I do owe him an apology. I told him he was out of his mind.
Well, hold on. You don't owe him one yet. Let's see what happens near the tail end of the year. If we get past the All-Star break and they're still fighting, we'll invite him on and see if he can go ahead and take you to task. But
I mean, we can only owe this to my almost constant presence at their home games, right? I mean, I now have season tickets. I go to games a lot. We can only owe their winning streak to my almost constant presence.
No, I agree, because you go there to watch the Giants play opening day, and the Giants and they blow a lead because that bullpen is horrific, just because you're there to watch and cheer on the orange and black, and the Diamondbacks never looked back, and now they're sitting 9 games on top of your Giants, who are 22-30.
To be fair to me, the Giants did win Game 2. I'm just saying.
Ooh, So their first game, their first day, when their starting pitcher hits 2 home runs and they have a chance to show off this new star of a closer, and he blows a save, and your comeback is, we won Game 2.
No, I'm excited for the Diamondbacks. Obviously, I don't think that this is something that they're going to be able to carry through the season. But what really kind of blows my mind is the Houston Astros. You and I both knew that the Astros were going to be good this year. You and I both knew that they were probably going to be either in the running or on top of that division. I just don't think either of us thought that they were going to look the way they're looking right now.
No, I did not. I mean, I'm not as surprised by them as I am by the Rockies. I knew the Rockies had a chance to at least go ahead, and I mean, certainly there was an option, a chance here to go ahead and make a statement, kind of say, hey, we're back, we've got some young talent, we're putting the pieces together. But I sure as hell did not expect to see a club like the Rockies really coming in there and playing as well as they have, consistently as they have. And I mean, and they're doing it all the way around. Their bats, they have the 4th best average in the National League. They're hitting .267. Tied surprisingly with the Braves for that average, but a team OPS of 769. They've hit 66 dingers, which again, there's always a caveat there with home runs with the Rockies because 81 games are played at altitude. But 249 runs across the plate, 138 walks, 441 strikeouts. So again, not the most disciplined there, but I mean, they're making contact, and the top team right now batting are the Nationals at 275. So, it has, I think, what you and I had said had to happen for the Astros to be successful has. That's Keuchel's back to his Cy Young form, and McCullers has come in as a very solid number 2 who can give him that 1-2 punch. You don't have to just try and survive Keuchel and then you have an easy road through. They have guys there who can still take you to task, and if that lineup gets a jump on you and you're playing from behind the 8 ball instead of in front of the 8 ball, it's obviously a hell of a lot harder for a pitching staff and a ball club to try and hang tight with a club like the Astros, and they believe they can do it. A.J. Hinch has them believing, and guys like Brian McCann, those veterans, are coming in there, and they're bringing in a good mentality to that clubhouse.
And let's not forget, along with their starting pitching, they have an outstanding defensive catcher behind the plate who's also a fantastic top-tier type pitch framer in Brian McCann. So they're really, really doing well, not only in the way their starting pitching's doing, but in how well their games are being called and caught as well. And we saw McCann go down with the head injury, and you were telling me that you saw him get hit in the head the other day again, and he kind of just bounced back from it. I wonder what's going on in
I saw this. Yeah, I saw this on Facebook the other day. Obviously, I follow Force 3, and again, we had Jason Klein on the show, the creator and founder of Force 3 Pro Gear. You can find it at force3progear.com. It's a site I recommend you check out just to keep you guys safe. It's a good thing to look at some of their gear for masks, shin guards, all that kind of stuff, catchers and umpires alike. But
chest protectors too, as Mr.
Yeah, chest protector. They have the whole 9 yards. And surprisingly, I guess he'd been wearing Mizuno and Under Armour for a while, and took a hit, had a concussion on the 7-day concussion list, and then and the other night he was seen wearing one of the Force 3 masks. And again, these guys are doing this kind of stuff, while they're still under contract with another company for the rest of the gear because they want to be safe. And he took one right off the crown of the mask and stood up and kept on rolling. So good to see him back. He's a piece that obviously means a ton to that franchise and who they are right now. And without that, really, they've added just the right amount of veteran guys while still keeping the team relatively, young with Correa, Altuve, that kind of stuff. And it's paying off. And you're going to see guys get paid a lot of money, but it's going to be, a good thing. And that goes the same for the Rockies. They bring up Arenado, or I'm sorry, not Arenado. They brought over Desmond, who's in left field. He's hitting 284 after a couple of injury concerns. Arenado's hitting 292. Trevor Story's slumping. He's hitting 192. Hoping to kind of see that bounce back up. He's got 7 homers, but it's kind of been up and down a year for him. But you think about how this club is hitting 267. If Trevor Story goes on a tear and gets his bat warm, you got a team right now that has 3 guys in that starting lineup hitting over 300. The catcher, Tony Wolters, hitting 312. Mark Reynolds hitting 316. And Charlie Blackmon smashing 330 with a 988 OPS and 12 dingers. Arenado's has 12 as well. So, these guys, we know the ball travels, but they're an impressive team. And like you said,
this is the Charlie Blackmon that Colorado Rockies fans have been wanting to see for a long time. Charlie Blackmon has always been a pretty good player. A great player, especially for the Rockies. He's been a great player. But this is an MVP run. This is a run at an MVP season for him. And this is what Colorado Rockies fans expect from Charlie Blackmon. This is what they want to see from Charlie Blackmon. This is what they want to see from Arenado, too. To have Arenado hitting in the 290s, they would really like to see that, probably see that number up higher than that. But the fact that he's smashing the ball out of the park, the fact that he's smashed the ball into the gap, the fact that Charlie Blackmon's smashing the ball out of the park, he's only 4 home runs behind the league leader right now. And that 330 batting average is where we always kind of thought, hey, this is the kind of guy that Charlie Blackmon is. And, of course, he's a great defensive player. Arenado's such a good defensive player that he annoys other teams with how good he is. That's just how good Arenado is. And
let's be fair. I think when it comes to Blackmon, you and I are just jealous of one thing, and that's the beard that the gods from up high have put their hand and bestowed on his face.
Yes, no, Odin gave him that beard directly from his own face. I'm convinced of it. Odin removed his beard and put it on Charlie Blackmon's face.
Beard is a hammer.
Yes. I'm convinced. No, I mean, they're doing great, and I hope it continues.
You look at guys like Tony Wolters, the catcher, has allowed 9 steals, but he's caught 6, 3 pass balls, on the season. Yeah, there's been 9 wild pitches, but he's working his butt off back there. 1 error out of the entire season, and that's in over 198 innings behind the dish. I mean, he's working hard, and we're starting to see some catchers who are, starting to do better things in the game. And I think it's something that we haven't seen in a while is really catchers who are that consistent, that solid. And could you imagine, though, if the Rockies were able to go out and make a signing run at Salvador Perez in the offseason when he becomes a free agent? Imagine adding that guy to Colorado.
Well, that's a championship waiting to happen, I think, in and of itself. But speaking of catchers, time to get to the best segment of the week. No offense.
Oh, hey.
No, time to get to our next installment of Backstop of the Week, and it is again going to be a backstop this week. Go ahead and get your finger on the Homer alert, but
all right, so
Gerald,
if you don't know who the backstop is going to be just by that comment, it should go ahead and be obvious. Again, if you want to go ahead and slam my faithful co-host for again being Homerific, that's at Chris_OOLF on Twitter. Of course, you can reach me at Graham_OOLF and the show at OO Left Field on Twitter. Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham, brought to you by the Grueling Truth Network at Grueling Truth on Twitter, and also presented by MLB Mayhem at MLB Mayhem on Twitter, MLB Mayhem on Facebook, thegruelingtruth.net, where legends speak.
So, obviously, the backstop of the week this week is Buster Posey.
It's who?
And it's Buster Posey. Gerald Dempsey Posey.
Gerald Dempsey? Well, dadgummit. Now we know he means business here. You're going full name.
Buster Posey is the backstop of the week, not only for what he's doing behind the plate, but also for flash on the leather at first base. He plays both positions quite well. In fact, he plays every position pretty well.
Homer alert! Homer alert!
Hold on. Let me finish what I was saying. When he played at Florida State, we're talking about a guy who played at Florida State and played all 9 positions in a 9-inning game, played them all well. But what he's doing behind the plate right now is, there's no other way to put this. This is another run at a Gold Glove year. He's basically unchanged from last year's 37% caught stealing rate. He's not the best arm in the league. We know that, but he is by far the best pitch framer and by far the best defensive catcher. And actually,
a guy who umpires respect the living hell out of. He treats guys right. He's fair, and that helps. Let's be honest, it does.
And he did have a great moment against the Cubs where he threw Baez out at second on what can only be described as having thrown a perfect strike to Joe Panik. Joe Panik, obviously, with the glove in just the right spot at just the right time, actually put the empty glove on Baez's hip and allowed the ball to be received there to get the out, and then showed his.
I think.
Go ahead.
You showed me the video, and you say that. The more I think about it, that's got to be why Baez ran away. He's like, yeah, like he probably felt this thwack on his hip. Like, well, damn, that was before my hand hit the bag. You guys suck. And he gets up and just trots on back to the dugout. Like, doesn't hold his finger up for replay. He's like, nah, we're good, Skip. We're good. Let's just keep on rolling.
And let's not forget that Baez is the tag master, right? So he had to be impressed with that little bit of leather flash from Joe Panik too. But what was even more funny than that throw to me was watching Buster Posey play first base the other night, and he had a ground ball hit to him that looked like maybe it was going to go past him. It was a nice hard hit ground ball, and Buster Posey gets all the way down like a catcher blocking a wild pitch in the dirt, all the way down sitting on the back of his feet to block a ball at first base, and then hops up and runs the ball over, which not something you see first basemen doing. As a first baseman, I would not do that. If I can't get the glove on it, I'm not going to get all the way down. It's too difficult for my big ass to get up. So what you're saying is he didn't
just lay out for a ball that was scorched and it went on the shortstop side of second, kind of like Steven Souza Jr. did in right field the other day in Minnesota when he dove for a ball that landed 35 feet to his left.
Yeah,
or to his right, rather.
I have something to say about that later, too. I was really hoping he was going to scorpion on that landing. You know what a scorpion is? When your face hits the ground and your feet come over your head and kick yourself in the back of the head. I was really hoping that was what was going to happen because it would have been serendipitous.
Rob Dyrdek is standing back right now applauding you for going ahead and just putting the scorpion into the show. Well done.
I was hoping, because that would have been serendipitous if he would have just dove at a ball that was nowhere near him and then kicked himself in the back of the head. But anyway, so Buster Posey, not only that, Buster Posey's having a fantastic year at the plate. Another guy who's hitting in the 330s, has 7 home runs. Strangely enough, all 7 of his home runs are solo home runs. He only has 11 RBI, which is not an indictment of him. Obviously, it's an indictment of the guys hitting around him. And this is indicative of what's going on with the Giants right now. The Giants have, prior to this series against the Braves, the previous 18 home runs the Giants hit were all solo shots. You can't win games that way. It's more effective to hit doubles and triples and get on and then get guys in than it is to just knock the ball out of the park with no one on base. I've told you this before. I would much rather see guys hit 300 with 15 home runs than see a guy hit 250 with 30 home runs. It's more effective batting. And that's just not what the Giants are getting out of their hitters right now.
No, you're right. And unfortunately, of all things, one of the guys who really was the recipient, I believe, of the first time that we actually went ahead and made it a defender of the week is Christian Arroyo, who, I mean, we have seen a huge slump from him. And I will say this, and I don't mean this, and I'm not comparing them apples to apples, but, you know, we look at Yadier Molina as one of the best catchers as far as his ability to work the field, you know, be flexible, get the ball. He's a great guy who guns down players. Buster Posey is not quite that level as far as throwing guys out. His ability to work the field, be that field general that I always talk about, to me, he really is probably the second coming of Yachty with a much better bat. A much better bat, who is not a guy you kind of look at as being a guy who's going to roll over. He's going to smack you in the yard if you're not careful. So I understand that. Congratulations to Buster Posey. If you didn't, you were bound to get it at least sooner or later. I'm surprised it hadn't come sooner, and I won't be surprised if you're there again next week. So congratulations to Buster Posey. Put that finger down, Chris. I am number 1. Thank you very much. So we get ready to close out, guys. Again, thank you guys always for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at OO Left Field, of course, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook, and the Out of Left Field Baseball community page. We want to thank you guys again for sitting with us for a whole year. Today, obviously, Chris and I have been planning the show for about 2 weeks before we first came on, and man, we've made a lot of changes. A lot of things have come and gone. We've gotten better. We've listened to you guys. And you guys have been with us for over a year now. Today marked the one year anniversary when our first show actually hit the Grueling Truth Network. So again, thank you to my good pastor. Our hats are off to him, Andrew Scavage, guys, Austin Davis, Andrea Dolan, for just being here for us, helping us out. I'm not going to leave us on a sappy note, so we're going to go behind the mask. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what happens when you're an umpire, okay, and you see something that kind of makes you scratch your head and wonder, what the hell just happened?
This isn't about that kid. This isn't about that kid that swung at the ball.
Sure is.
That rolled
sure is.
To him.
Yes, Chris.
Oh my gosh.
So
wait. I just want to say that this is my favorite baseball story of the year already.
So, all right. So let's go ahead and look at the pitch number 1. Okay, pitch appeared to slip out of the pitcher's hand. Okay,
I think
the rule states a ball which slips out of a pitcher's hand and crosses the foul line shall be called a ball. Otherwise, it's a no pitch. It should be a balk with men on base. Okay, so a strike is a legal pitch when so called by the umpire, which is struck at by the batter and missed. So we were in it's minor league baseball, okay? Double A. It's Hartford Binghamton, and Hartford and Binghamton. Hartford batter Josh Fuentes stepped up to the plate against Binghamton pitcher Corey Burns. 1-2, Burns lost a grip during the delivery, rolled out of his hand out of the first base side of the home plate. Ball's crossing the foul line, okay, so therefore it's becoming a legal pitch. And Josh Fuentes thinking, man, this is going to be funny. I couldn't help myself. So he decided to kind of just be fun and do kind of a half check swing that went all the way around. So he offered at the pitch. He struck at the pitch. So yeah. So
for those of you wondering why Graham's stuttering and going yes, it's because I'm over here making weird faces about this.
Yeah. So the umpire kind of stops and points at the batter, says, "Yep, that's a swing," and then goes ahead and points out to the side to indicate that would be a drop third strike. And the pitcher's like, "What? Okay." So goes scoops up the ball, tags the batter. Inning over. Good job. It's a strikeout and an unassisted 2 put out. So if you guys ever think you've seen it all, I promise you that you haven't. I'm going to go ahead and put this video up on our Facebook page, as well as also we will take that video that Chip Caray, I mentioned in the Chip Caray interview about his sit-down with former Braves catcher and now bench personnel Eddie Perez and centerfielder Ender Inciarte about everything happening in Venezuela. It's something, guys, we've gotten some great feedback on the articles. Some guys still have the idea of who cares, it's not my problem. And that's your right to think that. But this is something that is real in this world, regardless if it happens in baseball. If you know people, it's real. It's happening, and it's newsworthy, and it's affecting guys on the field and telling them, well, you know what, you're a professional, suck it up and don't think about it. It's not going to work that way because it was your family. You'd be thinking about it too. So take a look at that. Again, that'll be up on our Facebook page, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham, and, of course, at OO Left Field on Twitter. I will put it there and also retweet it out. So take a look at those. And if you're having a bad day, you will get a great laugh at the swinging strike behind the mask that we talked about.
And please, just on a serious note, if you're a young ball player, please, even as a joke, just remember that a live ball is a live ball. Just keep that in mind. That until the umpire says the play is over, you shouldn't do anything stupid like swing at a pitch that's still rolling toward you. It's an offer. I get it. It was a joke. It was probably funny to him until the umpire told him he was out, at which point I'm sure he was not happy, and I'm sure his manager was not happy with him. Just remember, until the umpire says the ball's dead, the ball's not dead. Okay? Keep that in mind.
I just want to know before we go, do your legs hurt from thinking about that? Because I'm just imagining the stadium steps that this guy had to run and the sprints that he had to do.
Oh, man. Can you imagine? I'm just going to say this. If I was his manager, he would not be able to walk. He wouldn't be doing stadium steps. He would be doing stadium lunges.
Ooh. Iron Mike's bringing it back to the old Army days. Man, call Sergeant Taylor, get him on the phone. Let's go have some fun. Guys, again, for Chris Ferry, I'm Graham. Thanks again so much. 1 year, guys, in the books. We're going to keep on rolling, looking for 2, 3. I'm going to pull LeBron. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. I am so glad I didn't just mess up my count. That is embarrassing as all hell.
That would have been Army
guys, we'll see you next week here. The Grueling Truth Network presenting Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham.